Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the Middle Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. We're glad to have you with us this week. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Caduceus Medicine and J. Franklin Automotives, and we always give thanks to the people here at WMUB, Mercer University, and their staff for helping us out here. In the spotlight this week is a lady who, I don't know whether she's a stranger to a lot of you. She's a stranger to me. She's been in our city, I understand, 5 or 6 months. She's the president of the Greater Macon Chamber of Commerce, Mrs.
Yes.
Mrs. Yvonne Williams. Welcome to our program.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to Macon. Even though you've been here for a few months now,
Yes,
you know.
it's my second tour of Macon.
Second tour.
I was here in high school, at Central High School.
As a
graduate of Central High School,
Central
yes.
High School, yeah.
And also Miller for middle school.
Okay,
yes.
Miller Middle School, and then on to Central High School. So that's you kind of
took off a career and came back. Yes.
Well, good. Well, we're glad that you're back. Now, of course, this is. I think you're the first woman to be the chairman.
I understand that to be true. Yes.
The CEO. So
yes.
Congratulations
Thank
on that.
You.
And this being Women's History Month, the month of March, so it's very appropriate. And when I scheduled you, I wasn't thinking about Women's History Month. I was just wanting to talk about the chamber and your goals, your ideas, and your vision moving forward. And of course, the chamber, tell us, a lot of people, we hear the chamber, we hear the Convention and Visitors Bureau. For the lay people, some people get confused as to what you do is exactly what the chamber does for an area, as opposed to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Industrial Authority, Urban Development Authority, and all those. I know you work with all of them, but your mission is strictly with the private sector per se.
Exactly. The chamber here has over 150-year history, so it's been a very strong organization from a United States perspective for a very long time. And this chamber has been the way that businesses come together through membership to be involved with several activities across the timeline of the community. Number one, the chamber has services for members. So a basic platform would be membership networking, membership advocacy, membership development, engaging, helping membership become more stronger for the enterprise system, being connected so that they can do business together and have a strong business marketing platform. So those are traditional ways that the chamber has always been successful. But we've had our leadership roles throughout the spectrum in economic development. We've been involved with downtown support over the years. We've been involved with tourism. A heavy win right now is the chamber stepped up just in the few months I've been here and took a very active role on the Altmogi National Park legislation, and it has passed both the Congress and the Senate.
Congratulations.
And we're very excited that Congressman Bishop and Congressman Austin Scott and Senator Isaacson and Senator Perdue all made a bipartisan effort to get that bill moving this year. And I know many citizens have worked hard over 8 or 9 years to help this become an opportunity, and now we're seeing the light of the day. With the president signs the bill, we are a national park.
Well, congratulations
Yes.
to you and the members of the chamber and everyone else had a hand in this. I know it's been in the works for quite some time, but at least it came to fruition, and that's a great thing for our community. But let's talk a little bit about the chamber in terms of job creation. Now, at one point when I served as mayor, the chamber was our point person for job creation. We had what we called an ombudsman. I think Pat Toppin wore that hat for a while, that he would be the go-to person if someone wanted to come here. Do you still have that configuration?
It's changed a little bit since I've come on board, being here just a few months. The transition of recruitment is now with the Macon Bibb Industrial Development Authority. The chamber still has the public-private partnership, which is a very traditional role that the MEDC played over several years, and to your point, very successfully in the state and in the nation, really, for the size of community that Macon is. We're now looking at a new spectrum that is very critical to economic development competitiveness, and that is talent and workforce development. So our space will be in partnership with the authority and with building lots of other partnerships in the community with Central Georgia Technical Institute, Middle Georgia State University, the Hutchins Career College, the Veterans Association. We have a strong mission to help develop workforce initiatives in order to keep employment engaged and these major companies that are expanding here. So it's a whole different spectrum for economic development, but across the nation, communities are working very hard on the talent pipeline so that there's recruitment, there's development, and there's sustainability so companies can be competitive. With 1,100 jobs coming just from the Air Force Base here, we have a big role to play to try to keep all these numbers so that young people have career opportunities, apprenticeships, internships, dual enrollment, technical college degrees, so that we are really graduating strong graduation rates and then putting in secondary education.
But in addition to bringing jobs here, you have to also keep those jobs here, to maintain, to retain those jobs. Is that a big part of?
Yeah, this workforce agenda is very much on point with that. Looking at the way the government operates is very important. Taxation policy, infrastructure. What are some of our goals for capital improvements here as we enter the age where $600 million worth of transportation projects are now in the ground under construction? How do we connect those projects? What is the Okmulgee National Trail going to look like when we have a wonderful bikeable gateway across the river and into the national park? We have to be very visionary and have lots of vision about things that need to happen 5 and 10 years out.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, the biggest challenge that you have when you go sell Macon, we hear about education, we hear about crime, we hear that our population is stagnant, we hear about division. What do you see are your members, your board, when the things that keep you up at night, the biggest challenge that you have? We have so many assets. We know about the great assets we have.
Right.
The universities, our location, and on and on and on. But what are the greatest challenges when you go and try to do your work?
People are beginning to become very supportive of the public school system, and that is a good thing.
So that has been a challenge heretofore, you're saying?
Yeah, I believe it has been a challenge, but Dr. Jones has evidently come in and really rallied both the administration of the public school system and allowed business leaders to come and be very active under Blake Sullivan, under various major members of this community. More businesses are engaged with the middle school, the high school. They raised lots of money for Leader in Me, and that has been put into most every classroom, I understand, from middle school into the high schools. So our young people are getting advantages that some areas never have in terms of ability to grow leadership skills, self-esteem skills, have ways that they can be understanding of career opportunities, and really beginning to think about their livelihood and making bib. We don't want to send our best and our brightest outside of our own area. We want to keep them here and have them employed. And that's a strong way the Chamber can be a connector, a catalyst to help build upon these platforms.
We always talk about region. You mentioned Robins Air Force Base, so we're in the heart of a region, but we're two different SMAs, a statistical metropolitan area. One, Robins, is an MSA, and Macon is one. Do you find yourself competing, not in terms of Robins Air Force Base, because we all are committed to that, but in terms of recruiting industry, do you find yourself competing or working with a job in one of Robins is as good as a job in Macon, or a job in Macon is as good as a job in one of Robins? How do you
I think you bring an excellent point. When it comes to the site, the location of the site is going to be the determining factor, whether a company wants to take this real estate or that real estate. But to be in the regional perspective, our numbers mesh together. We draw labor from a region. We have military affairs from regional perspectives. We have the airport is a Middle Georgia regional airport. So we have to work towards the conversation being regional in nature. And then when it gets down to the exact site location, that's a whole different thing. But what's good for any site is good for the region. So I believe that Macon is a hub. It's a hub of lots of major activity by the governmental side of things, from the downtown central business district, from medical, certainly the medical perspective. So we drive a several county area in terms of the ability to work cooperatively across those many communities.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about the school system and how that drives, how the important role that it plays in terms of recruitment and people located here. And I was listening to public broadcasting just yesterday afternoon, and a young lady was speaking, I think she was from St. Louis, and a comment was made that people, before, when people would come into a community in this particular town, that they would say, you need to be in this zip code if you want to go to a good school. But their objective was that they're working towards saying, no matter where you live in that particular county, there's a good school. Do we still have that? Because we, in the past, heretofore, I knew that people stirred people and said, you want to live in this neighborhood if you want your child to go to a good school. Are we working toward that same goal to say, when we say, if someone asks that question, and they say, where can I live? Anywhere in Macon is a good school. Is that
I believe that dialogue is where we're headed.
Yeah.
And I believe our discussion should be, we have choice. I mean, I cannot think of a city as 150,000 plus or minus that has the wealth of university, school system, alternative schools, career academy, all types of opportunities that if you want to be a major technician or you want to go into robotics or you want a high-level technical position, you can find that career pathway here in Middle Georgia, and you can come out with a very nice job. If you want to go on to four-year college, you can do that as well. But I'm saying a lot of the young people today want to be into the more arts community, or they want to be in more technology, and they don't have to have a liberal arts degree to do that. They can go and get a post-secondary educational track and be very well supported right here in Middle Georgia.
Well, let's talk about your goals and objectives. Of course, you came into an organization very strong. You mentioned 150 years plus, maybe longer than that, it's been around. But we all know the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement, no matter how good you are. So when you look, what are your goals? When you look, what's your vision and goals for the Chamber to move it, I wouldn't say to the next level, but continue to move in a positive
Well, there's several challenges that have to be overcome. We've got to think about our next building location. Our chamber building is now over 50 years old, and we either need to attract some tenants to come to the building to be part of our activity, or we need to look
downtown. You're downtown now.
No, we are.
You're still
at
over
the Centerplex.
Oh, I thought you had moved down on the corner of MLK and Poplar.
We had looked at property, but we have to have a really strong pro forma business case of where we need to buy real estate. How do we need to partner with the real estate? I think there's a lot of attractive opportunities to look at downtown. There's also the perspective that the Chamber serves greater Macon area, so we need to be very visible wherever that location needs to be because of all the areas of Macon. So yeah, in the next couple of years, we'll need to be looking at what does this location look like, or do we rehabilitate the building we're in, or do we make some interesting improvements around the Centerplex that will be open to a whole new opportunity with the National Park being open as a gateway into that entrance. That kind of changes the dynamics of those neighborhoods and of all the creative corridors around. Growing membership is important. You always want to grow your membership, your top investors. We had a campaign called Macon Now that supports education, supports Leadership Macon, young professional networks. That is a capital campaign, so we'll be part of renewing that campaign as early as 2020. Forging these wonderful partnerships with other organizations to be working across a comprehensive economic strategy. My background is very much engaged with a comprehensive economic strategy across the scale. No matter if it's business retention, if it's industrial recruitment, if it's competitive assessment of resources, you work a 5 or 10 year plan on all of those things being partnered together so that you're really moving the needle on leveraging major dollars and state sources, or that you're really helping leverage your university systems. And that's what we need to do, is really build a platform for all of us working off a comprehensive strategy.
Well, great. You mentioned something that, for what it was worth, my opinion, for what it was worth, I was always of the opinion that the Chamber should be more visible than it was. It's tucked away in the back of the parking lot at the, of course you do your work inside, it doesn't matter where you are. But as far, when people think of the Chamber, they think of Main Street. When everybody comes in town, they want to go to the Chamber, the first place to get information, not to the CVB, the Chamber. So would you, are you all actively looking to leave that place and come downtown so you are more
I
visible?
believe that's one of the discussions, exactly.
Good. I think
and
that's.
I think people feel like
I've always been an advocate for that. So.
we think that being around our other partners would be very advantageous. You
Yeah,
know, we have several
great.
organizations that do have facilities, and if we ever were partnered together in an organization, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
There's so many cities that have gone to that level, and they're very successful.
Yeah, co-located. Let me tell you what I suggested. Here again, no one listened to me, but I suggested when the Music Hall of Fame left Macon, and that building, the city owned the property that building sits on. The state owned the building, paid $8.5 million to build it. We gave the 4 acres to them to build it on, and they vacated. I suggested that building be turned over to the Chamber, MEDC, Urban Development Authority, Industrial Development. All of them would be in that one building, but it would be the Chamber building. And of course, no one took my advice, and you know what it is now. That is not used for a good purpose that Mercer is doing, that Mercer Medicine, but I just thought it was the idea of building for that type of operation. But let's talk a little bit about job creation. We hear that, especially when it comes to commercial buildings, we keep hearing about the Eisenhower Corridor. We hear about the Pinona Corridor and other corridors where people are just leapfrogging. They're leaving this area, going to another area. So therefore, we're leaving the Macon Mall blank. We're leaving the old Westgate blank and other shopping centers and shopping areas, the old Kroger. How much do you, as an not you personally, but the organization, of course, you being, when I say you, I mean the organization, how much do you get involved in trying to fill in those places as opposed to just trying to create new places?
Well, from my personal background, I've been involved with lots of redevelopment, revitalization of corridors, and really in my world of the Community Improvement District up at Perimeter in Atlanta, we were all about redesigning streetscapes to prepare for mixed-use development, to prepare for very strong residential growth around MARTA stations, and lots of ability to create marketplace, a sense of place, and really attract corporate interest. So in the case of Eisenhower Pinona, I would think that one of the things under a comprehensive economic strategy is your partners would come together and begin to put all of the financial tools together, whether it be opportunity zones, whether it be TAD districts, whether it be blight funds, and begin to match those up around corridors of development so that you could entice developers to come in and redevelop properties that are now in either they've been abandoned or they're not in their highest market value. Right. I think the Central Georgia Technical Institute is screaming for something to be attached to it. It's got great vitality with the student population there. If there could be some housing opportunities to attach to that, then you would start seeing other kind of business begin to blossom around the area, but maybe bring back some service and retail industry. The film industry is really big in Georgia, and a lot of communities are trying to find production studios and sound stages and things that would allow the film industry to become very active within their community. I'm thinking Macon is middle Georgia. Maybe there's a way that Macon becomes very aggressive in how to attract that kind of production industry. I know Capricorn Records is coming back in a big way, which is huge for Macon. We have the best of the best music heritage here, and a lot of that could be tied into an arts cultural comprehensive strategy, which is under economic development. So it's changing. The world is changing. Young entrepreneurs are building businesses based on industrial arts, or their music arts, or creative arts. They're making makerspace. We have so many assets for entrepreneurial support here in Macon, but if everybody were to combine together working towards the buildup of that opportunity, then I think we could be impactful. I think we could see some things really transition. Our transportation linkages should be thought about when we're looking at development. How do we get our transit system connected in a bigger way to really get people moving back and forth from different economic nodes of activity? So all of this is a part of really thinking about the picture, but the whole is connected by the parts. Yes. And we've got parts that are moving. We just need to figure out what are they doing to be connected together.
Yeah, you mentioned music. One thing that I've been an advocate for, and I hope that someone will finally do it, is building an amphitheater in this town. We say that we are a great music town, but we don't really have a venue other than the auditorium and I don't count the Coliseum because it's like a barn when you go in there and listen to music, the acoustic system. But what people are going to now, what I found, is the amphitheaters. Wolf Creek in Atlanta and all over the place, they're building these amphitheaters. Chastain Park, of course, in Atlanta. But we, as a music capital, as you said, and we don't have an amphitheater. Would you support?
I would support that 100%.
Yes, okay.
I would
great.
think it could be a very nice riverfront connectivity piece, maybe get to the downtown, to the Ocmulgee National Park. You could use it for some theatrical productions of the heritage of the Ocmulgee Nation if you wanted to. You could have music, you could have pop-up artists. Macon is a real draw for people that are connected to the history of music, and they come to Macon and pop up and do performances.
Yeah.
They show up at Grant's Lounge. They show up at lots of places here that they know are part of the history of how you get discovered and how you have a following. And so I think that's a pretty cool thing for a city to still have that kind of, buzz going about. And I think the attraction of the talent is very important. People from Atlanta, if they knew more and more about the real heritage of music and the quality of live theater and music, they would come here for weekends on end, because this is a huge draw to a major metropolitan network just an hour north of us, just over an hour.
Yeah, we have 8 million people within an hour and a half of this place here. Now, speaking of that, in the legislature this month, last week, I think, a proposal came up about the casinos, gambling casinos.
Right.
Would the chamber be in support of that, and would you actively lobby to get one here? Because before they were talking about putting one in Atlanta, then the old Underground, and one in Savannah, leaving us out of the mix. Would you and your board, have you discussed it, or would you discuss advocating having one of those casinos here if it would come to pass?
I have not had my board mention that they have a position. I believe they would want to see an impact statement, so a quality look at the pro forma numbers and what does it mean for Macon overall, how would it support business. I think they would want to see all of that as part of having to make a stand of a position.
Yeah.
But I have been in Georgia long enough to know that discussion's been around. There's been a horse racing discussion.
They say it's picking up momentum this year in the legislature.
It could be a part of what the state wants to look at if they're going to have riverfront casino boats and things like that. Well, they have an inland venue. So, it is something that we should all look at in terms of positive or negative.
Part of the mix, as you said, some of the whole, they're part of the whole. Now, speaking of that, should the chamber, or does the chamber, I'm sure you don't, but some people will perceive that the chamber doesn't necessarily pick winners and losers, but it gives more support to certain parts of the community than others. Whether that's a fair assessment or a fair accusation is a different thing. But the perception is that the chamber doesn't care about Eisenhower. The chamber doesn't care about Macon Mall. That that everything is focused in North Macon, and the chamber is tied into that, and not necessarily promoting the well-being or the economic vitality of the entire community. How do you answer that criticism?
Well, I think there's probably a very valid perception. I will tell you that we're more diversified in leadership than I've seen in many chambers. We have very strong African American engagement. We have lots of female leadership. We have women's leadership forums and minority-based seminars that help us all become healthy. That's what we're here about, is having business be healthy and retain businesses long-term. I believe that what the community should probably think about is the chamber's a go-to. So if there's a special initiative across Eisenhower, there's a special initiative across Pionono, we're a perfect organization to come to for support and advocacy, or in creativity, strategic planning. Those are ways that we can be of value to people by saying, how do we connect you with the government resources or small business administration resources or university culture. I mean, that's what we can be a catalyst with how people become efficient with the way they go about looking at their strategy, instead of having just pockets of areas that say we only work in our area for these type of improvements. No, come to the chamber and get the business input or get business expertise to support your initiative.
And so job creation, how are we doing in job creation? I know the Medical Center and Geico, the big hitters, and Mercer University, the big employers. How are we doing with small business? We hear all the time that the backbone of this economy are the small business. How are we doing with small business creation and development in Macon and Bibb County?
We have to make that a priority. I've come in with fresh eyes and looked at what are the organizations that really support small business. We have the Small Business Development Center from the University of Georgia here. We've got SCORE, which is a traditional organization with retired, very strong executives that volunteer with business support. We're trying to find ways to package all of that and say the chamber's your go-to, again, for finding ways that you can look at different cycles of business and figure out how you need to get support. And I don't know of another organization in the city or the county that allows people to have that opportunity through a membership. And I believe that the chamber has ways that we can step up those kind of opportunities by connecting into webinars or connecting into social media platforms. We're doing a lot with some social media strategy where we do video graphics at our events so that people can get profiled. If they're a sponsor, it's a long-term opportunity to network that event to your customers and your vendors. So these are great ways that we can kind of spread the story. We had a huge, first time ever, printout of Macon Bibb in the Atlanta Business Chronicle in December. The chamber led that effort. The first time they've ever taken a market report outside of Atlanta to showcase Macon. We got it over Columbus, we got it over Augusta, and it was a very strong support publication. 85,000 subscribers, over 6 million people in Atlanta that look at the Business Chronicle or have access to opportunities. Huge opportunity for us to tell our story. So these are things that people can tag through social media, but we have it online and they can say, look, we're in the Macon Market Report, come to Macon, see what the opportunity is here as you begin to look at your strategy. So what the chamber does, our members can tag onto it that makes our story broader.
One of my biggest disappointments during my 8 years as mayor and even now, but that I thought we would have had Atlanta to Macon commuter rail by now. That's why I bought, during my term as mayor, bought the terminal station and designated it as a multimodal facility. That's what it is. As you know, Atlanta tore theirs down a long time ago. We're the only one with that type of building. But yet, we haven't had any movement of late, from what I understand. Is the chamber actively supporting that, or is that still actively moving in terms of Atlanta, Macon
I
rail?
believe right now that the state strategy is the Savannah to Macon to Atlanta truck capacity because of the major port volume that's going to come through. I will say that you had a very big vision because that terminal is very exciting, in my opinion, coming in with fresh eyes. We could have maybe found a way to revive the Nancy Hanks or something that was really part of our tradition from Savannah to Macon to Atlanta. I think preserving the terminal was very bright and strategic. Will there be a day when we have commuter rail? I think we did have a path where that was kind of moving along, and then we had some conservative budgeting problems that caused us not to really go forward with a lot of rail connectivity. But I believe that the population is going to become more dense and that one day you're going to see more merging of North Macon all the way into South Atlanta because of the development patterns that are happening. And there possibly could be a beginning of light rail or rail opportunity that we'll see down the road when our kids are coming along and saying, we want to be able to connect in to these marketplaces.
Well, one thing they're going to have to do, they're going to have to come down to the terminal station and get on the train because that has been designated by the federal government as the multimodal facility.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. That's a very strategic opportunity.
And some people wanted to put it up near Bouldenbrook, but we said no, it should be downtown. That's where transportation hubs should be down in the center of the city. But you mentioned about small businesses, and we all know the importance of small businesses. But the minority business in Macon, women-owned businesses, disadvantaged people of color, is not as strong in Macon, to be quite honest with you, as it is in some cities like Atlanta. How and what can the chamber do? Is there a role for the chamber to play in mentoring and helping women and minority-owned businesses get up and stay up on their feet?
We have an in-house organization called SCORE
SCORE,
that
I'm
can
familiar with
be
SCORE.
called upon, and they can assess where you are and your
That's the SBA. It comes out of the SBA.
yes,
Yeah.
and it could be a way that it assesses where you are in terms of what your needs are, what kind of mentorships you might need. I think we have chamber members that are in the financial community, the legal community, other parts of the community that are willing to have connectivity to business
But no money, you don't have a pot of money. Like some places, like in economic and community development, we have a pot of money comes from the federal government, $50,000 if a person has a good business plan. They can come in, especially a disadvantaged business, and get, but you all don't have any.
We don't have that established,
money.
but that's probably things that need to be thought about when we look at a comprehensive economic strategy, as I mentioned earlier. What are we doing with the segments that each player has a role in? But how do we report out? How do we implement? What are our matrices? What are our benchmarks? You know, what are we doing to be cohesively supporting?
Yeah. Well, great. I am thoroughly impressed with your vision and your enthusiasm for Macon. I guess if the chamber president wasn't enthusiastic, well, none of us should be. But it comes across as sincere, very authentic, and we wish you well on the job. Our time is almost up. Do you have anything coming up that we need to be aware of at the chamber? Any great plans? We have about 30 seconds you can share.
No, I'd like to say thank you. First of all, we have our Total Resource Campaign coming up that's going to be a blitz through the community of asking people to sponsor certain opportunities for the next year in terms of our events. Join the chamber, become a strong member, and I'd invite people to take that opportunity. There's nothing better you can do to invest for your success than be a member of your own community's Chamber of Commerce.
Well, great. Well, look, we welcome you. We are glad you're in this position. You've been in there 5 months now, I think, 5 or 6 months on the job. But Macon you're no stranger to Macon. So we wish you well in anything that we can do on this end. We will help in any way that we can, and we wish you much success, because if you're successful, the community is successful.
That's true.
And
we
want to be successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've been speaking with Miss Yvonne Williams. She is the president and CEO of the Greater Macon Chamber of Commerce. Been on the job 5 months, but as you heard, she has a lot of ideas and a lot of energy to get Macon moving forward again. We'd like to thank you again for joining us, and we'd like to thank you all for joining us here this week on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. Until next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Goodbye.